Nay.
I thank the chairman. Ms. Goodling, in your written testimony, you stated that you had some concerns about Deputy McNulty's testimony before Congress. In what way were Deputy McNulty's statements to Congress misleading?
I think in some ways he simply didn't communicate all that he knew, and I'm certainly not saying that he did it deliberately. Testifying is, as I'm finding out right now, a difficult thing, and I'm sure that there will be things that I don't remember, and I'm going to try to be complete, but there may be things that I leave out as well. So I'm not saying that it was deliberate, but what I'm saying is when I looked back on the testimony, I believe that there were a number of things that I did brief him on, and that information wasn't fully revealed.
Okay.
So I guess I'm just trying to address the fact that I felt like he accused me of withholding information, and I felt like I had provided some information that didn't get communicated.
I understand. Can you be a little more specific? What things did you specifically brief him on that you felt he was not entirely forthcoming before Congress when he testified?
He was asked whether the White House was involved in any way, and he said, well, these are presidential appointments, so I'm sure White House personnel was informed at some point. Certainly.
And why would that not be a complete answer?
I think because of the way it came across, I think people believed he was downplaying the role to a certain extent, and the White House had been involved for several. He was aware that the department had worked for at least several months with the White House, and that many offices in the White House had signed off, and that they were in fact, participating in making phone calls and different sorts of things with members.
So would it be fair to say that you believe that Deputy McNulty knew about the White House's role in the firing of the U.S. attorneys, but wasn't sort of diminished that before Congress wasn't completely forthcoming with how active a role the White House played or was involved in?
I mean, they were involved in the sign-off. There were many offices that did sign off on the plan before it was implemented, and I'm just talking about the sign-off and then the actual notification phone calls and that sort of thing. I just felt that the statement didn't fully express the fact that the White House was involved in the sign-off of the plan at the end. At least, that's the part that I knew about, and that he at least knew that was a process that had been going on for some period of months. There were other things.
Such as?
His knowledge of how Tim Griffin came to be recommended for the appointment in the Eastern District of Arkansas. I met with Deputy Attorney General almost every week about specific U.S. attorney vacancies because he was so interested in the topic. As far as I know, that may be the first time that someone who was involved in the process provided weekly briefings, but he was very interested, and so every week I would meet with him and we would go down a list of where we had vacancies and what, if there was any new news there, whether we'd received names from senators, whether we'd set up interviews, how the interviews had gone.
So you believe that his knowledge of how Griffin became recommended for that position, he wasn't fully forthcoming?
I know that I would have told him over the 6 months that process was going on that he had worked at the White House and that the White House did want to provide him with an opportunity. I'm not sure that I would have told him who in the White House because I'm not sure that I ever knew who in the White House wanted it. But certainly I believe that there was some information about Tim Griffin's appointment that I would have communicated in those weekly meetings.
Okay. Aside from those two examples, are there any others?
He testified that the Parsky Commission worked very well. That's a commission that refers to the California selection process. One of the things that I had been briefing him on was the fact that we had a vacancy in the Central District of California. And in the fall, we did take steps to interview some candidates outside that weren't recommended by the commission. And the reason that we did that was because Mr. Sampson told me that he and the Attorney General believed that in some cases the Parsky Commission was rather slow and that they sometimes didn't include all the candidates that they had an interest in considering. And so we actually had interviewed candidates outside that process.
And so you believe that his testimony that it worked very well was not exactly accurate because there had been a way to go around that because it wasn't working.
Now, in January, he was accurate in saying that we were committed to working with it. By the time January had come along, the decision had been made, I believe, at the White House that we would continue to use the Parsky Commission, and we were using it in relation to the two new vacancies that were created there.
Okay.
And the last thing was the the caging issue, which was a reference to Tim Griffin.
Can you explain what caging is? I'm not familiar with that term.
My understanding, and I don't actually know a lot about it, is that it's a direct mail term that people who do direct mail, when they separate addresses that may be good versus addresses that may be bad. That's about the best information that I have. It just it's that it's a direct mail term that's used by vendors in that circumstance. But in any case, I knew that that was an issue that might arise because there had been stories about it.
That Tim Griffin was involved in that to some degree, or may have been involved.
Right. No, and I believe that Mr. Griffin doesn't believe that he did anything wrong there, and that there actually is a very good reason for it, or a very good explanation.
But Mr. Mr. McNulty was aware of that, and
he was aware that that was an issue. I told him the day before that it was that there was a good chance that it could come up, and I did provide him with information the night before to make sure that he had some information to review so that he could help to answer those questions.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.